Alright everyone, and welcome back to the channel here, and welcome back yet again to another video. So, as you can probably tell by the title and the thumbnail of this, this is based off the fact that I have owned, obviously, Mustang GT. I previously owned a GT500, but I'm mainly speaking toward the S550 GT500s, that if you're considering getting a GT500 and you have a 5.0, or you're wanting to just go ahead and purchase a GT500, why, I have a few reasons why a Mustang GT is a better buy than a GT500, and I will explain all that. Obviously, I'm not comparing a factory GT in its stock form to a GT500. Clearly, they're not the same car. But the reason going forward after purchasing why I believe a Mustang GT is a better purchase over a GT500, and I'll explain all that and dive all into that and what I mean. Alright, so let's just start with number one, and this is the most obvious reason why, and that is the cost. Obviously, the GTs and the GT500s, you're probably going to spend maybe right around half the price for a GT as you would for a GT500. So this is more geared toward people that, yes, you could be in the market and afford a GT500, but the cost of the car and financing and the payments, you might not be able to do as much to the car after you purchase it, because the cost of the payments aren't anything like what it would be on a GT. So you can do more and get more out of a GT. So number one is the cost. You're looking at, this is the 2022 GT. Depending on condition and miles, you might spend between 35 to like 40,000, because obviously they're no longer brand new. I paid 48 for mine, brand new. So between, let's just say 35 to 40,000 for a GT. A GT500, if I were to get a GT500 20 to 22, you're looking at least 80 grand. A lot of those are still high 90s, even up in the hundreds if you decided to go carbon fiber track pack. 35 to 40,000, between 80 to 100,000 for the GT500. Secondly, cheap horsepower. So there's so many options and so many routes you could go down in regards to horsepower with superchargers, turbos, and blowers. If you go an ESS kit, those are, depending on what package options you go with, between like 7 to like 8,000-9,000 for an ESS kit. You get an E85 tune with that, a good drag pack, fuel upgrades. You're probably maybe 10 to 12,000 roughly for the price of that. You know, I mean, that's just estimates. So let's just say high end, you paid 40,000, and you pay for the ESS kit, tune, tires out the door, install, let's just say in $15,000. So you're looking at $55,000 for a car that already is putting down the same amount, if not more, especially on E85, horsepower-wise, than a factory GT500, which is 760 crank. You're probably looking at upwards of 800 to 900 on E85 with an ESS kit. Now I just use ESS as an example because they're extremely popular and the price is not that expensive. You could obviously go with a Whipple kit. Now, a Whipple, you're probably looking at maybe right around the $10,000 mark for a Whipple or a Pro Charger. There's also the twin turbo kits, the Hellion twin turbo kits. Again, you're probably looking at between 8,000 to 10,000 for the twin turbo kits. The ESS is the best option, the best bang for your buck in regards to price and power. Now, you pay 90 grand for a GT500. You shouldn't, or you probably shouldn't be too concerned about the price of upgrading a tune and other stuff like that to up the power of the GT500, but some people are in a situation after purchasing it, they can't afford to do as much to the car as they could if they went the route of having a GT. Another thing to point out is with the GTs, you obviously have the option to go 10-speed automatic or a manual. The GT500s, you only get the automatic. Now, as great as those transmissions are, a lot of people would still like the option to choose to purchase that with a manual. You don't have that option with the GT500. You only get the automatic. Clearly, mine's automatic because that's just what I wanted. All right, and going along with that, with the GT, there's a lot more options and trims to choose from compared to the GT500. You have the GT, the Mach 1, the Bullet, and within all of those, the trim packages, the base, the premium, the performance pack. You could do a digital gauge cluster or the analog cluster like mine. Within the GT platform, there's much more options to customize and choose from in regards to that versus comparing it to the GT500. And that might not seem like a big deal, but have friends that own GT500s, and that's the 2020 to 2022s, and their biggest complaint is obviously the horsepower. It's not the power, it's the fact that it's an automatic, and they would like to have the option to choose automatic or the manual, and the fact that there's just not as many of specific options to choose from comparing it to that of a GT, mainly more so the transmission. From everything I've heard, that's one big complaint comparing from just the car side. Clearly it's a GT500 and they're fantastic cars. I know a lot of people can attest to it, and that would be the transmission. Another thing is these engines are just as strong, have just as much potential as the 5.2 that comes in the GT500s. It doesn't take a lot to get these things to 1,000 horsepower with the right tune. On E85, it can put down the same amount of power and hold it just like it can in a GT500. You know, I've had a lot of people that told me after I bought this car that I did a significant downgrade going from a 2012 GT500 to a factory bone stock Gen 3 Coyote, and in my opinion that is 100% not the case at all whatsoever. And what I've kept saying in regards to that is, obviously, number one, I don't really care what anybody thinks. It's my car and it was my choice. But to just answer their questions and the reason why I did what I did, the overall power potential of this car compared to especially an S197, they're a stronger engine and it's got a lot more potential than a GT500, and just as much as the 2020 to 2022 GT500s. Another thing is you got to keep in mind is the cost of parts. You blow a GT500 engine, those cost upwards of $20,000 for the GT500 engine. A Coyote, you could get a brand new Coyote crate engine shipped to you between $6,000 to $8,000. The transmission in the GT500, again, the cost of those parts compared to a Coyote are probably 3 times what it is. You're gonna spend a lot less on repairs and costs. 6 to 8 grand for a Coyote engine. The GT500 engines, man, those, they're not cheap. And one last thing to add on top of all this is they're just a lot more customizable. Even though there's a lot more of them on the road, there's more parts available. You can make it more of your own in regards to if you decide to put a GT500 hood, front bumper, the spoiler like I have on mine. A lot of those parts are interchangeable, so you could take a GT500 hood, just minus the badges and all that kind of stuff. If you want to put the GT500 hood or the front bumper on the car, all those parts are interchangeable, and that's fine. There's just a lot more you could do to these cars to make it your own, and there's a lot more options available in regards to the GTs. Now, if you could afford the payment on a GT500, you probably shouldn't be too concerned about the cost of maintenance and repairs if something catastrophic happens, like an engine or replacing the transmission and stuff like that. But there's clearly people that can't afford that stuff after purchasing it because the price of the payment of the car or whatever it is. You got a lot more freedoms and a lot more available to you at a cheaper cost in regards to a GT. All right, that's gonna wrap this one up. If you guys could do me a favor, please go ahead and hit subscribe, drop a like and a comment. I would greatly appreciate that. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.